quickly. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. One caveat, if you haven't picked this up yet, the microphones you have in front of you require you to touch them. So you'll need to touch them. When you touch them, the ring will light up, and you'll know it's active. And that way, your colleagues can hear you, and the recording can hear you, and it makes it better for everybody. So that said, I'm Sid Beckman. I'm the Vice President, Dean, and Professor of Law at Lincoln Memorial University Duncan School of Law in Knoxville, Tennessee. To my left is Gordon Russell, Associate Dean, Director of the Law Library, and Professor of Law, also at Duncan School of Law. We get better. You don't have to leave. It'll get better, I promise. I know it's slow to start, but okay. To his left, Chris Niedringhaus, a Library Director and Associate Professor of Law at Cleveland Marshall. To her left, Jim Epting, Director of Computer Services, University of South Carolina School of Law. To his left, Becky Mangum, Network and Systems Manager at Duke. To her left, and if I screw any of these up, y'all can correct me. To her left, Hiroki Nishiyama, User Specialist at Duke Law School. And to his left, J.J. Kidder, Web Editor at Duke Law School. And just so you know, for some reason, apparently on the written program, J.J. was left off, but he's been part of this from the beginning. So if you write any comments about how awful this was, J.J. That being said, we can start this off a couple of ways, and I'm going to start it off, and I'm going to sort of throw out a question, and then it'll just sort of hopefully ping-pong from there. And I'm going to go ahead, because I think this is, to me, one of the most fascinating support issues, and there's lots of them. But, Jim, I'm going to throw it at you, because you had an interesting support issue come up this year with regard to the dean and what happened to your school. You want to share that story and how you dealt with that? It should be on. It should always be live, hopefully.
Technology is just too much. Hey, I've been doing technology a long time. I'm also do network servers and that sort of thing. So I'm not only an administrator type person, I also actually do some work. So anyway, our outgoing dean this year, in lieu of some faculty raises, gave $2,000 of discretionary funds to all our faculty, which in IT we didn't know about was coming. So we found out when we started getting phone calls from our business manager on what to buy, and everybody wanted iPads and iPads 2s, minis, laptops, and she has no idea what to buy, how much they cost or anything. But she did quickly max out her credit card for that month buying it. So we had to come up with a support policy after the fact to try to stop gap some of the measure there and draw a little small line in the sand to help out with that. And we support, like most of y'all, up to a point on your second or third device or whatever you've got. So we had to come up with that in a hurry, and that's an ongoing thing now with the second and third devices and how much we do support it and everything. So we've tried to, and we thought we had this in place where the administration would let us know when they were going to do something, if they, like this, or a piece of equipment shows up one day and they ask you, "Did you know it was coming?" "No, I didn't know it was coming." And as I told Sid last night, my business manager told me that about a network scanner, and said, "Well, we polled the faculty and staff, and this is what they wanted." Well, he didn't poll us about it, and we didn't know anything about it. So those type of issues and how you handle them every day. And the blindsided ones are the ones I worry about.
I know that's never happened to anybody out here who've been blindsided. How many of y'all are in some sort of support role at your school, your institution? Okay. How many of you are administrators? All right. How many of you believe that your IT staff and your administration have a wonderful, perfect dialogue so that these kinds of things don't happen?
Not perfect, wonderful.
Good. Well, that's good. 4 of you. That's not.
They're all at the top. How did you do that, Ken? That would be my question.
How did I do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not maybe just like.
There's a microphone in front of you.
Ken Hirsch, Cincinnati. There are things that still sneak through the cracks. Primarily, the kind of thing we have that is like that is invariably new staff comes on board that we're not notified in advance, and the equipment has to be provided. And that's a real business process issue that has been present at both of the academic institutions I have worked at. I used to be at Duke. And I keep trying to be an evangelist for reminding people that there needs to be business process modifications. You communicate to us at the same time you communicate the news to anyone else that there's a personnel change. And some of them are getting it, not all of them are yet.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
In my past life as IT director and associate dean at USC, one of the building blocks that I found to be the most important for sort of ongoing dialogue between the administration, the faculty, and IT is the annual survey. The annual survey to each faculty member, to each department head, to each student group leader, asking for not just their need, things that they need, but things that they desire, and asking them to split those into a wish list, and we absolutely need this list.
How many of y'all use surveys of some sort? We're big into that. Yeah, to the point where we probably survey them to death. Next, Chris, you want to share a story?
Sure. I've been thinking about this since we started working on this panel, and mine is not so much a story, but I think the biggest challenge is my mindset is I have yet at work to be presented with a problem that could not be solved with money. But the problem, right? I mean, if you had infinite staff and infinite things to play with, so you knew what was coming towards you, but none of us have infinite money, and so the challenge is for your department to prioritize, but the rest of the people that you're working with need to understand the true cost of what it is they're asking you to do. And I think that's the conversation that you just need to keep having over and over again. There's not just the cost that you put on the credit card, but it's the staff time cost. Well, if you ask us to do that, yes, we can do it, but we can't do this. And I think it's having that conversation with someone, and it goes better with some people than other, but that's the challenge, is to keep balancing all that out.
Yeah, that's it's tough because the cost isn't just the price tag.
Right.
And a lot of times they think the cost is simply the price tag. Well, if it costs you $500, that's the cost. I wish it were that simple, but it rarely is. Anybody comments or questions about that kind of thing? How you might deal with the budget or that kind of dialogue? Yes, ma'am.
Our director has submitted proposals to our development group, and included in each of them, he's put money for a person. Doesn't have to be a full-time person, but it could be a part-time person. But he's let them know, we're down several staff members. Anything new that you want, you need to include the money for a person.
To give you an example, because I know most of you will laugh at this, we have to move our servers across campus this summer, and someone actually said to me, well, don't you just unplug them and carry them over to... That should take you like an hour, right? So, yeah.
Oh, that gives me heartburn. And that's a good segue. Becky, you've had some recent challenges sort of like that.
We've had at Duke Law, we've had a lot of changes in the last couple years, one being on the human side and one being on the technology side. And on the human side, we've had a change of management and that are semi-technical, semi-not technical. So when a faculty comes along and needs some software or hardware, or because we do have a policy where everybody, and we're very strong about this, that they have to come through our department, which is academic technologies, and I'm part of the system group, so I do all the server stuff in the back end, and they will say yes. And one of the challenges is for us is right away they say yes without knowing that, well, we don't even have a system for that, or we can't even do that. So that's one of the human side of the challenges. And then the other side, on the technical side, is a lot of our services are now at the main campus. We have always had all of our services, our email, our data, everything has always been inside our building. And now we are moving and just finishing up moving all of our services to the main campus. So the challenge there is now we rely on more of a help desk, or calling the Office of Information Technology at Duke, OIT, for help. And so there's a delay. There's not that fast response time that we've had before, and where our faculty and staff have been adjusted to. So those are two of the main challenges that we have right now at Duke Law.
How do you think that'll play out for your staff and how they deal with those things? Because you'll get the complaints, right? I mean, when someone doesn't respond right away, they're not going to call main campus. They're probably calling your cell phone, I'm guessing.
Yes, and probably Hiroki could probably answer that better. But I'm not on the front line anymore. I was on the front line for 12, 13 years, and the last 2 years now I'm second tier. So I do all the systems and not the front help desk. So how does that play out? We've got a new help desk system. We use Remedy, and that's helped out a lot. So we can submit tickets right there to the OIT help desk. So we don't know how that's going to pan out. We'll still be right now, as of today, we're still employed, and and we'll see. They still come to us. They'll still come to our internal help desk. Whether or not that will change or not is we don't know. So some of our staff are a little uneasy.
One of the things that I think is a theme at some level through all of these support issues and others is a disconnect between administration, IT, and faculty. And I don't know if you've all seen that. But the way I look at it is, when IT talks to faculty frequently, not always, but frequently, they feel like they're speaking Greek, right? And that's one issue. And then the other issue is, at least at my institution that we've had, is where when we try to come up with solutions, or if a faculty wants something or whatever, the IT person or staff looks at all of the potential problems, and then sometimes things just don't get done because, well, until we work all this out, we can't do it, and that's just a level of frustration for faculty. And that, I think, enhances the bridge, or the gap, I should say, among that communication. Have y'all experienced any of that, or do you have any thoughts or comments on sort of how that communication works or doesn't work, and how you fixed it? And
not that we can express on a recorded meeting.
Yeah, well, turn off the cameras, please. And but it is a problem. Yes, sir.
I might expand a little bit. This is Steve Winkleman from the University of Minnesota. An additional challenge is that with cloud and consumerization of devices, if you don't answer quick enough, people will find their own solution, and you find yourself supporting a wider and wider variety of things. We've been working hard to meet with the faculty on a regular basis through a committee and having them take back our challenges to the general body. And kind of, from our point of view, it takes us an hour to do something of a standard device, and maybe 20 hours, and that's 19 hours we couldn't spend on something of more value to that other faculty member. That's been kind of the basis of our argument. We've had some success standardizing with that.
Yeah, and of course that helps a lot, but the problem you're talking is what Jim referred to earlier, that sort of multiple devices. I'm curious, how many of you are sort of expected at some level, it may not be written in a manual, to support whatever walks in the door from yeah. And that's, right now it's iPads and it's Android tablets and it'll be Windows tablets and it'll be this smartphone and this smartphone and this smartphone. And that's going to be difficult. Yes, ma'am.
At UT Austin, we have a policy where we will get you set up with your email. We will get you on the wireless, but that is it. We will give you 15 minutes. Anything outside, it's a personally owned device.
Is that across the board? I mean, like, I've been there a long time, and I know that's very flexible, and support is, a big word. But since the older faculty, and I've been there 20 plus years, they show up at my door and say, "Can you help me?"
Yeah. If it's a law school owned property, like a laptop, or now we've added iPads, we will work on those. But if it's a personally owned laptop, we'll give you 15 minutes.
Wow. Do they hold to that 15 minutes?
Maybe 30, maybe an hour. But
yeah, depends on who's asking, right?
Well, and yeah, I've only got 3 guys in computer services. We don't have the staff to do more.
All right. Yes, sir.
at Carolina, one of the things we've tried to do to address that is develop a scope of services document, formalize it a little bit more, and although it's been in draft for longer than I care to admit, is one of those things that kept getting put on the back burner for me. Because one of the issues we've had is with mobile proliferation, we've just resigned ourselves. I mean, I've told my team we're going to have to support them. I mean, but it's kind of like we don't have a formal policy like you do at UT, but we'll set you up to get into the Exchange environment, which is easy on an iPhone or an iPad, let's face it, and even on an Android. Once you've done it once, you can do it almost with your eyes closed. So that's not a big support issue. Get them set up for that, and then beyond that, we do kind of treat it as a personal device. That said, what we've had a problem with in the past, and what my team let me know when I got there in 2007, was we'd have faculty showing up with their home computer, not university owned, not purchased through the department, and there was this expectation that, well, I teach here, you got to work on my computers, plural. And I said, absolutely not. I'll be the bad cop. I mean, I'm the head of the IT department. I'll be the one that has to re-engineer the thinking here. And we've got that under control now, I think, because people realize that it's not reasonable for your IT department at your work to support your home computer devices. I don't care if you're dean. I mean, within reason, I mean, you can have that discussion even with your dean if you have it in an intelligent, and collegial way. And I almost think that you gain more respect by having those conversations with the senior leadership than by always kowtowing to them. Because if they think you're just a high-paid janitor that fixes the computer plumbing, then that's different than if you're having a vision for the business needs of the organization, and if you're, maybe not always saying yes. That said, I also am more inclined to say yes than no, just because I think it's easier to think of reasons to say yes than it is to say that's too hard to do.
Yes, sir.
I agree with everything Doug just said, and having said that, in terms of putting aside who owns what, if we are not prepared to support virtually every device out there, at least as far as integrating it with work product, they will go somewhere else, and the rationale for us to be there will grow smaller and smaller.
Well, I agree, but there's got to be some limits, right? I mean, if you think about, one of the things I was talking to somebody earlier about was Android's so fragmented, right? So if you had an Android 1, 2, 3.1, 2.2, that's just one little operating system. I mean, shouldn't there be some limits?
There should be rational limits, but even more important as to how they're rational is how often do you revise them so that you're not behind the curve on what people are going to be walking in. And if you have student support involved in your portfolio, then you need to be prepared to have a very wide horizon of what you are willing to work on.
Yeah. There's a bunch of hands. We'll try to get to all of them, but one quick poll question. How many of y'all issue laptops to students for standardization? Okay, we do that. And I know that at my last institution, what was driving us crazy were the Macs that were coming on board, because then you saw a huge increase in that. Create all kind. Okay, I won't get the order right, I'm sorry, but hands. There was a bunch of them. Ma'am, you were, I thought, next. In the very back. Yes, ma'am.
So, we had taken the just say no approach for a lot of years, and it caused just so much animosity. And the fact is that we're to the point, and this is University of New Mexico, that we pretty much say we'll give it a go. As long as your expectation is we can't guarantee it's going to work, and we might have to have your device for a little bit longer. And I have just the most top-notch student employees that will hand them something and say, figure it out, play with it, see if you can get it to work. The wireless is always trivial. The big challenge is generally figuring out the client settings for, whatever email client they're trying to use to, on their device. But, the other big change in our department is we do have written policies, and they are out on the web, and they do have to come through me for technology purchases. So it's a great opportunity to say, look, this is a new operating system to us or a new device or whatever, and we're not guaranteeing anything. This is our standard, and if you deviate from our standard, then we'll give it a go when we have time to do it. And, the whole atmosphere of the whoops, my finger got tired apparently. Coffee. I have always reported directly to the dean, and I am currently reporting to when we got a new dean, he decided he didn't want direct reports, so we got farmed out. And I'm currently reporting to an associate dean for administration and finance or business operations. I don't remember what the title is right now because it changes. But she's a faculty member. And having that liaison, even though I was always welcome at faculty meetings, I am not a faculty person. And having her be the interface when those hard decisions have to be made, like we won't support your home computer no matter how much you whine about it, it isn't going to happen, that can come from her. And, you know, I was a little skeptical at first, having reported to a dean for a long time, but it has just truly been a blessing. And, you know, we probably provide faculty and staff support at a much higher level than students, but we also tell them we'll give it a go. You know, we'll try.
Other hands? Yes, sir.
Gary Moore from Hofstra Law School. I wanted to pick up on where Becky was leaving off. That seems to be, I think it's a subject for a lot of us, is the seemingly now centralization of IT on schools like Duke, and Hofstra has been like that for a while. And how do you deal with the, it's a two-part question. It's, A, how do you deal with the university IT and making sure that your needs are being met as you're losing more and more access, like we had that issue too. And the second question is completely different, and I'm hearing another thing as well, and I heard this from Doug. How in your schools are you being seen, as the IT department being seen? Is it an integral part of the strategic mission, or are you considered, just support service?
The first part, I'll answer that as far as moving to central services is a little discerning for the staff themselves. And we have always worked, and I have always worked closely with the central. I've always been involved in listservs, in meetings, so I know what's been going on in different departments on campus and made some great people to work with, to share ideas with. We have a problem, shoot it off to our listserv. So it's always been very, very close. With the first part of our system, which was moving all of our Novell system, which we have one left, over to a Windows system, and moving everything over to, we have our own SAN in-house, but now we're moving all of our storage over to the OIT. So all of our services are going over there, everything's VM. And we're still in control. If I need more space, I ask them for more space, but I'm still in control of the servers. I still can upgrade them, and I still have them, even though a lot of the VMs are on physically in their storage warehouse. So that has not been a problem. We just, this past weekend, which I'm surprised that we were able to come to CALI, moved our group-wise system since 1999 with a out-of-control email system, no restrictions on space. We have 20 gig mailboxes that we had to move over to an Outlook Exchange system to get them down to 1.5 gig. And it worked out well. We planned, we met with them weekly, we're all on committees, and because we work so closely. And the migration went, now they're working on all the 20 gigs that we had to archive to get them down. Now they're moving those archives over. So the downside, a little bit of the downside, is the delay. Mm-hmm. There's a delay, and there was a delay for us when, if one time the file system was down. Well, I know what to do to turn the switch on. Well, there's like 3 hours there of trying to get a hold of them. So that's something that I'm not used to, personally, and that's frustrating.
Did they try to remove any access from you? Because in our case, when we moved from Novell to Active Directory, I had to fight to keep some access.
Absolutely. I've lost I'm in charge of our OU in the AD, so I do all the group policies and all that. So that we have control on. But there's other things that, grouper and things like this, that we don't have control on right now, and we fight. We do have to fight to get that.
I'm going to talk to you afterwards because we have very similar changes with you. So I'd like to talk.
Any other hands I didn't get? Yes, ma'am.
I'm afraid that I might be in a hostile room when I say this, but I worked for Central IT. All of our academic technologists report up to Central IT, but we live in our schools. It works out really well if you can have somebody who identifies with your school, and I don't just say that because I really like my job, but who identifies with your school but is still has that connection through to IT. When I first started working at the law school 3 years ago, none of my people would call the tech desk. Completely unwilling to do it. Didn't like it, didn't want to have anything to do with it. We've worked so hard, and so those were resources that they didn't get. They would prefer to call me and wait for 2 days until I got to that point in my inbox, rather than calling the tech desk and just having someone there reset their password. Working to get that level of trust up with your client base will make your lives just so much easier. It's hard to do it, but because they know you, they trust you, they count on you. But it will honestly make things better in the long run.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Going back to the personally owned devices, one of the things that wasn't mentioned is liability. Unfortunately, once IT touches it, for some reason, if any future problems occur, somehow it's IT's fault.
That's why we don't.
Yeah, exactly. Even though, talking to the professor, you find out that they dropped their smartphone into a soapy tub of water while washing their 3-year-old, but yet somehow because IT touched it last, we now have to fix it again. And so there are liability issues that you're just getting into a quagmire.
Just to add to the personally owned devices, the university as a whole is rolling out encryption on laptops. We're starting that first. Then they will do to phones. And so I have told all of my users who come to me with phones, you need to make sure that this phone can handle encryption. And if it can't, or you're thinking about buying a new phone, you need to make sure that it can do encryption. Some of the earlier Android phones, they won't work. And so when that comes about, users who had access to university email will lose it. And that's a university policy. The law school has no say in it.
Yes, sir.
On that topic, I've been experimenting a little bit with a different model of liability.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry. Maybe it's this microphone or maybe it's me. What I'm telling users who want to bring their own device, do their own thing, is that to get that freedom, you have to accept some of the responsibility, some of the liability, some of the responsibility of working with the local IT department to make that device work. If it breaks, printing stops working, IT can't address it immediately. Your responsibility to have the freedom is to help us and give us some leadway in getting it working. We tried the model where you could only do university work on university computers, and it just doesn't work with faculty and student lifestyles. They have this blending of work and personal life, and they work from home, coffee shops, everywhere.
Yeah.
The other wrinkle on that, and I don't know how many of y'all have this, but we have a part-time program, and the one that's difficult is not a personally owned device, but it's owned by their employer. And that is really a liability issue because we're not going to mess around with something that's being handled by another IT department. And usually we just tell them, have them give us a call and we'll talk to them and see if we can figure out a solution. But that's a big issue that if you have people who are going to school part-time, I would watch out for. So.
Good point. You're talking about the students and...
Right. Students come in with, and they're using their work laptop.
Right.
And they may, if they're working at a firm or something, they may have firewall. You just don't want to mess around with somebody else's IT setup. So.
Yeah, I agree. I can imagine. JJ, you're in a different role because you're the web editor, right? So what sort of challenges have you had as it relates to support, and how have you dealt with those?
Well, I think I turn it off. It's on. Okay. I think the big challenge that I have is in terms of the main way that I interact with people is via email. And, that has its own set of challenges because you have to be very specific in your communication. And when somebody writes to you with a general request, what they thought was a specific request, and you have to narrow it down to the specific request, you have to get to that point without bothering them. And since we don't have the, a couple 100,000 years we've been using facial cues to really ascertain what the emotional tone of communication is, and in an email you don't get that. So it's a trick to be kind of pedantic, specific, probing, and inquiring, and do it in such a way that you get to the information that you need to get to, and that you get the client the outcome that they want, and it is, in fact, the outcome that they want. So it's a constant thing in my day to review my outgoing communications and, review it 3 times. Did I ask the correct question? Did I ask the correct question in the correct way that's going to get the response that I want? And are there any questions there that are going to irritate? And can I can I soften that? And can I throw in a Happy Friday or something in there?
Those are great points. In fact, the email thing, I think, is more of a problem than we realize. And for not just the facial, but the tone and timbre and the things that you can't pick up. And I will tell my faculty that you need to really think about those emails before you hit the send button, because it could be taken in a way that is not intended. They don't know that you're giggling when you're typing it, meaning it to be funny. They don't know, they just don't know. So that's a problem that we're seeing. And as much as I love technology, I think I told Gordon the other day, I said, I'm at the point where, let's just rip out all the technology, get rid of everything. Your options are a yellow pad and a pen and a dry erase board. We don't have dry erase boards. Yes, sir?
JJ, wouldn't you find, it's a sort of rhetorical question, so let me rephrase it. I would think, as opposed to asking you whether you're going to agree with me or not, that in that kind of circumstance, it would be a much more efficient use of both yours and the customer's time if your email reply to them was, I really want to talk to you on the phone, what's a good time for me to call you, and then conduct what we librarians would customarily call a reference interview, which A, lets you immediately narrow down the focus, B, each of you can hear the tone of the other's voice, and if the frustration starts building up, you can start rephrasing things.
I think that's a great point, and I actually take it a step, or rather several steps further. If it is a faculty member or staff person that I know, sometimes I just show up because there's, because sometimes there's a lot of things that take a lot longer via email than they do if you're just sitting there looking at the screen together. Yes, this. No, not this. And again, you get the emotional reinforcement and connection with the customer. And you can very quickly get to what you want instead of, having to go round and round on an email about it. Very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is. Well, now, Hiroki, you're on the front lines, right? So you probably have addressed some of this both on the telephone side, if you will, and the email side.
I've sort of stopped on the telephone side because I'm away running around the building so much. But yeah, I have several things that have already been discussed here. First is personally on devices. In my group, there are 4 of us plus our manager, and we actually make house calls on some occasions. Because our faculty like to work from home, they have problems, we can't work it out over the phone, and they are impatient, so they ask that somebody be sent to their home.
Don't tell
right
my
away.
faculty that. And can I get your home number?
But when this happens, which takes somebody away from us at the building, because we're using Remedy, the upper management has developed this service level agreement where things have to be resolved in a certain amount of time. Taking one person away really hurts us in trying to get problems solved. And it's improved from what it was before Remedy, but that's a whole slew of problems where taking one person away yet doubling everybody else's work while they're gone 4 or 5 hours during the daytime, how do you combat that? I mean, it would seem logical to say, no, we can't during school hours, but that's one issue. The other issue is, for the older faculty, it's been, how do you do this? And it's an upgraded version of software, so it's really easy to assist them in trying to figure out how this new software is like the old software, whereas for some of our newer faculty coming in, they're asking complicated advanced questions on software that some of us have never heard of. So, but their expectation is that we know it right away. So how can we know this? It's not like we're in the Matrix and we can just instantly shoot up the manual into our brains and answer them right away. How do you appease that faculty member with this will take time without ruffling any kind of feathers?
And the answer is?
Always make the faculty member feel smarter than you, and you win every time. Seriously, I've been in that situation where I'm in the same situation. It's like I'm a sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. With since I'm the head of the IT department now, but I came up through the ranks. I was a desktop support guy. I was a sysadmin, and so I like still getting my hands dirty. I don't like just being an administrative hack, if you will. But if a faculty member comes to me with a question about how do you do this advanced footnote formatting in Word, you guys are IT, you're supposed to know that, right? I'm like, we don't compose advanced documents in Microsoft Office all day. That's not what we do. But let's try to figure this out, and I make it almost like a collegial effort and make them feel like they're helping me learn something while I'm helping them, and then we both come out feeling good about ourselves. And it's just like, and honestly, it's partly just massaging personalities, I think. But I was going to mention about the home support. We do a fair amount of that down the road at Carolina, but through Citrix, through Go to My PC. It's kind of like the version of, so they'll hit the website, remote.unc.edu, and they choose a representative. And we have the advantage of the fact that our main campus help desk uses this system, but they've given passwords out to distributed IT shops who've needed it. And so we have a couple of faculty who are fairly needy at home, and they'll call in and we'll say, look, I'm not going to be able to talk you through this. Why don't you just connect in? I'll take over your box, and I'll show you how to do that, or I'll actually take over control of your mouse. And the first couple of times we've done it with some people, they're like, wow, how are you controlling my PC? Can you do this when I'm not here? And you have to reassure them, no, you have to connect and accept this little thing. But that's been a great tool. I don't know if OIT licenses it.
We're actually in the process of testing a piece of software, Screen Connect, with them. Yeah, so it's worked a few times, but some of the older faculty really like it when you show up. I personally have not been sent to a home visit because some of my main responsibilities include the classroom support during that time, but I've heard horror stories. But yes, some of these older faculty, even though you can take over their device with a remote software, they still prefer somebody to be there to do it.
But it is a great idea for sort of a short-term fix too. And if you're going to, how many of y'all have home support of some level? Wow. Right.
What if you're dealing with someone who is an ambassador in Malta?
Well, Phil,
we ended up spending hours and hours of support at all hours of the day with one of our former faculty members who changed jobs and worked for the State Department, and we had great connection to his machine, but it took forever to do the remote stuff.
Wow.
And he's back now, and we're thankful.
Fly to Malta.
I told you, Phil, I was willing to fly to Malta anytime you want.
But you're complaining. I mean, in the very back, I saw a hand. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to touch on what you were saying a little bit ago about, you're right, it is about, I'm Anthony Miller from Florida A&M University College of Law. But it is a lot easier to get up and just go to the office, because them trying to explain something over the phone is almost nerve-wracking. But the problem with that is I found that they want to make you their relative or something, because they're stopping you in the hall like you're their cousin. Hey, I need you to come by my office and configure my printer. And it's like, what? And so you get these, when you've got many faculty and you go by and you help them out, they almost adopt you. And that's counterproductive, because when you're doing stuff, instead of them calling IT, they're calling your line directly, like, hey, can you come up to my office? And so that's a big problem that I had. So what I've been trying to do is stay ghost and say, okay, call IT, without being rude or saying, hey, I can't help you or leave me alone. Call IT and we'll process it through that way.
Yeah, processes. I mean, I think processes help a lot if you, A, have them in place, and B, require them to be followed. And that's kind of what solves that. If you say, look, we have a ticketing system. If I just come in, or whatever your system is, then that, I can't make sure it works right. You can come up with a logical reason not to do it that way, which solves it a little bit. It's not perfect. Depends on who asks you, right? John?
One of the nice things about a ticketing or help desk system is, even in a situation where it's informal, go back to your desk and start your own ticket and do it again, because you can use that as statistics to say, look, we need another person. And here are the numbers, and I can prove it. We're doing 50 hours a week, all of us. And I can justify another 40-hour person. So, I mean, if you've got a ticketing system, use it for everything. And use those numbers. It's the truth. You're not making up numbers. They're real numbers.
Yeah, everybody thinks IT's overstaffed at the administrative level. Yes, ma'am.
I think another reason why the processes that are in place and the ticketing system is good is because it doesn't let us play favorites with the faculty that we like, or that think they're our friends or want to be our friends, versus the ones that challenge us and push us and maybe are not, the most congenial, but kind of forces us to support them equally based on their business needs.
Two hands here, so you just pick between.
You go.
Share the mic. I wanted to just switch and address the demand side of what you all are expressing today, and I'll give you my opinion on that, and it's because no matter how well you address their problem, and putting aside the fact that, like everyone else in life, regardless of salary, you want to get stuff for as cheap or as close to free as you can, what you're giving them is faster, more convenient, and in my opinion, 90% of the time, more competent than what they can get from a commercial service, because they're going to call the geek squad and overpay and end up still having the problem, or they're going to have to bring it into a store and pay and maybe still have the problem. So the demand's going to stay no matter what.
That's true.
I'll hold it down for you.
You're very kind. Just one, instead of going back to your desk and filling out your own ticket, when you get to your customer's desk, call the tech desk while you're sitting there with them. You don't have to type. You can look at their problem while you're reporting the thing. It gets in the system, and they get an idea of, oh, this is how the process works. It kind of feeds them into it a little bit better. It's worked well in the training sort of a
That's a good
process.
point. That's a good point. One of the interesting things is when you take all the issues with regard to IT and you meld them with an electronic library, then other problems arise. Gordon, you want to talk about sort of some of your challenges?
Before you do that, can I just wanted to say, if you find that your customers aren't using your ticketing system because it's not convenient to them, then it means you need to find another system, to me. I mean, you should use a ticketing system or some kind of system like that. But if nobody's using it and that's causing a problem, they're not using it because it's not the best way for them to accomplish that task, and it means that you need to look at what kind of system you're using in my book. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. I hate ticketing systems because all I ever get back is a response that I gave a ticket in. It always drives me crazy. So what's the answer? Or and an aside on this, one of the problems I have I happen to be teaching classes on Saturdays this semester, but I'm sitting there and I have a frustration and a problem. But what really got to me was the fact that the students explained to me that they were in a class a couple of nights before that, and the professor had the same problem. So my frustration was that the professor, we have a form that they can fill out in the classroom of anything that goes wrong that they can turn in, but they just lived with it and didn't do it. So on the other hand, I have a frustration from an administrative standpoint saying if they don't use the systems we have in place to let me know, and then it's an ongoing problem, becomes a sort of problematic piece too. And I don't know if other people find that frustration where people have a problem but they don't deal with it, don't tell anybody, and you don't hear about it until it comes up in a situation where you can't do anything about it, or it's like with your wife when she brings something up 6 months later and you're sort of like,
Actually, our secretarial center handles some of that because they deal with documents every day. We might have a one-page document we work on. They're writing a book. So. In trouble now, Ken's up there.
Me.
Well, I think that goes to we are all, obviously we're going to have to retain specialists, for particular pieces of software. There's going to be somebody who knows something better than anybody else. But we're also, I think, as tech unfolds into more and more areas of our lives, we're going to have to become less siloed, and we're going to have to become, collaborative, collaborative problem solvers. Call in the specialists, but really the point is we're all in this together.
Yeah, and there's a I guess a debate. Standardization solves a lot of problems, but most users don't want to be standardized, and I mean that's the problem. We standardized our laptops because we issue them, and we've just rolled out Windows 7. So from XP, we skipped Vista. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in the fall when all the students and the craziness, but that should hopefully calm down. One of the things I think, Jim, you told, if memory serves, didn't you guys get somebody that just used the personal devices that specializes in that? Or?
Well, we just, thanks to Doug, we support Macs now, but after listening to him in 2008. But that's one thing my assistant did, and he decided we would do that. So we offer a laptop or a desktop. It's on. Jeez, man, King, I'm sorry. So we give you a laptop or a desktop. It used to just be a PC every 3 years. Now we have probably half a dozen faculty have iMacs or a laptop. So we support that. I sent my laptop support guy to Mac training and that sort of thing, so we'd be up. And I have my network administrator, who's my backup, handles getting devices, the new phones and everything hooked up to our network, things like that. So, there's one thing with the BlackBerries, getting them in, and we have to depend on the server across campus for exchange on that end. So yes, in that respect, we try to specialize in that area, and I just back them all up, which is a trick in itself. But
I want to make yes, sir.
It's just an educated guess in a lot of circumstances. You read. I mean, the iPad really fooled me now. I did not think it would be that big a hit, but that guy's smarter than I am. So.
I think it also has to do with your relationship with the vendor. We got a BlackBerry playbook because we asked for it. I wasn't able to get it the same, but we also got an iPad. We bought one. We knew they were coming down the pipe, but we have a good relationship with Dell, and so we just basically asked, can we get a unit, try it out for a month, see what the faculty think, and we usually get tablets to play with before. We have an all-in-one unit that we're rolling out to the classrooms, a touch screen instead of the tablets and desktops that we had before. So I think if you've got a good relationship with the vendor, you can always ask. It doesn't hurt. If you do enough business, you teed us with Dell, but give us what we ask.
Yes, they have those programs, and I forget the name of that program, but I've taken advantage of that. In some instances, I'd like to know how because I asked that question about 6 months, a year ago, about the touch screens for faculty and staff are in the classrooms.
We're putting it in the classroom, and the one that we chose because it has to be anchored, it wasn't the one we really wanted because the one we really wanted didn't have a means to put an arm on the back. We've got it in one of our busiest lecture halls, and so far it has been so much more stable than the tablets. We had bought 4 or 5 years ago tablets for $12,000 a piece, touch ones that were just a nightmare. And we're actually finishing rolling out Windows 7 and Office 2010 to everyone. But I'm within the law technology services, we don't handle students. But we do use Xtegrity, and I've been told that they'll have to have Windows 7 for Xtegrity. It won't work. Or Exam 4 it won't work with XP.
Really?
Although I did hear from the Exam 4 guy that you can ask.
Yeah, because we've been using it on XP, but maybe they're going to quit supporting
That's what. Yeah, that's why. That's why we wound out the other. But
Yeah.
talking to them, they said that if you can show a demand, they'll let you.
We're hoping that the touchscreen, the all-in-one, will work because we have some faculty that actually can stick their hands down where we have the desktops and turn them off because they're too noisy, and then that shuts down the room for the faculty member after them.
We've had that complaint about noise also.
You need what we call at Carolina professor protectors.
I've had somebody tell me to put a wrap top in there.
Piece of plexiglass, so they can't touch it, because tape doesn't work. Do not turn off.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
They're also the ones that take the tablet and wrench it to the side of the lectern so that they're not in the way and pull the string cables.
Faculty can tear up technology quicker than anybody. Or also, I do want to share one quick story, if you'll permit me. When we were building our rooms, and we had these smart podiums and Crestron controllers and all that. We were dealing with a company that, that's what they do. And we were talking about we need a solution for if you need support in the classroom. And what's the best way to do that? And they had an idea, and so they programmed it. They said, we can resolve that. And so there's a help button. You press the help button, it comes up on your Crestron. It says, here's the problem. Everything is connected through our network, right? And one of the questions was, and they rolled this out for us to come look at, and they said one of the issues was cannot connect to network. And I said, I got a question. When you press these buttons, where do they go? Oh, well, this sends an alert to your tech person. And how does it send that alert? Well, it sends it over the network. I said, okay, so if I'm having a problem with the network and I can't connect, and I send the help button, where's it going to go? And the guy's eyes got big, his mouth dropped. We need to think about that. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. Last minute comments from any panelists. I want to end us on time. I think we end at 2, correct?
I think any last minute comments that I have is one, your question about the proactive is it takes money. And we would love to have a lot of, right before I walked into this session, I just scrolled up on my iPhone page after page after page of my manager trying to justify on Hall of Academic Technologies getting iPads. The reasons why our email or our ticketing system. We need to take that with us, have the iPads with us when we go to the end users. We can check tickets out and do everything instead of opening a laptop. And so that is one thing. It's going to cost money. It's going to cost the okay from the dean. And so we would love to be more proactive. An answer to your question, Phil, is Screen Connect works great in any country. The Olive Duke campus has now got a site license for it, and I have been using it, and with great success. Very easy to use. Our faculty have been able to use it with no problems. So that's an
He just wants to go to Malta. I know what's really. This is a dialogue that really is ongoing, this whole support issue. Let me ask this question. How many in this room are not on the Technoids listserv? Everybody. Well, there's 1, 2. Okay, that's also a great way to put something out there and, as you all know, get lots of different feedback, lots of different responses. I think it's a wonderful listserv because everybody's willing to pipe in, and that's one way to continue this dialogue with regard to support issues as they come up. And this is going to be, I think, more prevalent, the personal devices and the changes we make. And somebody said, one of you all, I think, said that your policy is you can't do work on anything other than a work machine. Chris, is that problematic?
Okay, so here's the problem. We try. Are we being recorded?
I think now it's
So,
For another minute.
Their mics are so to give you some background, at this point in time, the law school is the only college left at the university that has retained its IT staff. The colleges have been audited, and upon auditing, all of them have had their IT staff removed and had it centralized. We got audited last year, and
You're giving part of the panel a heart attack. Just
I'm sure it was my convincing, charming demeanor that convinced them. We actually kept our IT staff, which was, the audit notice came, and we all sort of panicked.